Josh Holland, I can't imagine anyone else that I'd want to talk about what happened in D.C. with. Thank you for joining us on the program. It's been nearly a week since Trump supporters in MAGA hats and MAGA fur, I guess, stormed the Capitol and sent our lawmakers into lockdown. And we still haven't seen any real accountability for the violence and those who incited it, namely the president. Will there be any consequences?
There has to be consequences. The thing that we all have to just say is absolutely unacceptable is to spend an enormous amount of money and devote an enormous amount of resources to charging a bunch of MAGA idiots for misdemeanors, forceful entry, and not get to those who are ultimately culpable. There will not be the kind of accountability that there should be, because it is politically difficult to bring that about. In other words, what should happen, the apolitical response to Trump's relentless attempts to pull off a coup d'etat and remain in power, and I include the calls to secretaries of states urging them to fraudulently recount their ballots to give him a win. The appropriate apolitical response is to investigate and charge him and put him on a trial. Give him the benefits of due process, assume he's innocent until proven guilty, and put him in jail. That's not going to happen because of politics. Politics is going to save him from that fate, and the appropriate response for the 100 and I don't know what the final count was, 150 or so lawmakers who voted to overturn the results of the election last Wednesday, most of whom voted after the insurgency had happened, right? Let's be very clear about that. The appropriate response to them is expulsion. The 14th Amendment makes it very clear that you cannot serve in office after you have encouraged insurrection against the government. That is impractical. There's too many of them. So no, we will not get the kind of accountability that we want. But I'm fairly confident that we're not going to allow only a couple of goobers, idiots who posted, bragged about their crimes on Parler to be the only people who face any accountability for this. And what we're seeing, and I want to make this very clear, because we should talk about the response by tech. Sorry about that. We should talk about the response from the tech companies. The tech companies that are, that suspended Trump's.
Yeah. Yes.
That suspended Trump's, Twitter account, et cetera, they are only part of a response that we're seeing by civil society that says that this is unacceptable. So, Lehigh University withdrew Trump's honorary degree that it bestowed upon him 30 years ago. Big Golf has joined Big Tech and is withdrawing from Trump's golf courses.
There's golf? I had no idea.
I just made that up. But the two golf associations, I don't know, accrediting associations, have said that they have canceled tournaments at his tacky ass resorts, and so what we're seeing is a broader movement by civil society. It is not just tech.
Josh, did you
go ahead? I'm sorry.
No,
I'm rambling. I'm pissed off. I mean, yeah,
you should be. There's with good reason, and I want to make sure we get all your thoughts out there. I had this thought about how the right is reacting to Twitter's ban and Facebook's ban, saying it's unconstitutional and all manner of other allegations against what Twitter is doing. But isn't the right the place that wants the market to decide? Aren't they all about the market deciding? And isn't what Facebook and Twitter did basically the market deciding that Trump needs to be kicked off? Even though it's, for Twitter, he has so many followers, it's kind of, against their business model.
Yeah, I mean, look, we can, they whine so much about the unfairness of everything. And I mean, the bottom line is that this is the common response is that it's business, that Twitter is a private company. It's not the government. But I want to say this. If Twitter were the government, you have no right to sedition. That is not protected speech. If you look at a textbook of what is the examples of what are the most straightforward examples of speech that is not protected, incitement is primary among them. So if Twitter were a government entity, it would not violate the First Amendment to punish people who engage in incitement to violence. That is not something you have a right to do. You don't have a right to insurrection. You don't have a right to incite people to go storm the Capitol. And again, I would tie this, though, to a failure of our political institutions, right? I mean, basically what we're seeing, and it is not perfect. I don't want big tech to decide, what is and what isn't acceptable. I want, the criminal justice system to do that. I want our political and legal institutions to do that. But failing that, and clearly our political institutions have failed. They impeached Trump last year, and they said he is going to do the same thing as he did with Ukraine. Everybody said this domestically with our own elections. And he was acquitted. So,
here we are.
And here we are. So, yeah, I don't want big tech doing this stuff, but yeah, I do want to live in a democracy.
Somebody has to do it.
And it has fallen to civil society. Again, it's not big tech. It's broader than that. It has fallen to civil society to stand up for democratic norms in a vacuum.
What are the implications of this event for our democracy and the functioning state? You were just getting there talking about how civil society is the one that has to stand up against Trump. What are the implications for the future?
I don't know where if anybody predicts how all this shakes out, don't believe them, because this is as uncharted as waters get. It is my hope. I mean, I have hopes. It seems to me that this has been a shock to the system. I don't think conservatives and a lot of Republicans, and certainly not the White House, have fully assimilated how traumatic this event was to reporters covering it, to members of Congress who were almost killed by a mob. This is a major shock to the system. This is one of those events that has the potential to shake things up.
Doesn't the fact that Donald Trump sat back and watched it on TV while having a party?
I mean, Jesus Christ. Yeah.
If he had called out the guard, an argument could have been made that, he was doing something to stop this, even though he had incited it in the first.
Yeah, no, he didn't want this to be stopped. I mean, this was part of a concerted effort to stop the transfer of power, and we can't paper over what this was about, right? I mean, it could have gotten a lot worse. Remember, they brought 13 bombs with them. I mean, so it's a shock to the system. And what happens after that is very hard to predict. It's certainly my hope that there is a concerted pushback against the disinformation and propaganda. The root of all of this, and I keep coming back to this, is that, and because I don't want people to get away with it, is that these bogus claims of electoral fraud have emboldened these people to get violent. And this connection cannot be ignored. It is as clear as day. One thing leads to the other. And what you have right now is a lot of people who embraced and amplified those claims, those bogus, nonsensical claims of election fraud, things that shouldn't have even been treated seriously. Now trying to shirk responsibility for the role that they played in this. We can't let them do it.
How can we consequence some of these people who are not on the ground and who are not our electeds and Donald Trump? I mean, we've got an entire, right-wing news structure that is also complicit in this issue, in this insurrection.
Well, I mean, let's be realistic. People who just amplified these conspiracy theories are probably not going to be held accountable. But there's a large group of people who were involved in planning this this assault, and it is looking extremely. I don't want to get ahead of what we know for sure, right? There are indications. There are a number of indications that suggest there were a handful of lawmakers who were involved in this, in a direct way, in this insurgency, and they should be expelled from Congress. I don't know that that's going. I doubt that will happen, but it could
under the 14th
Amendment. But it could happen, especially if there's a smaller number. Again, you can't expel 150 members of Congress for delegitimizing the election. But if there's a handful, who were coordinating with the insurgents,
coordinating seems.
I mean, if you can make it up, if you can find a handful and prove it, I think you could probably find the votes to expel them from Congress, and that should be a high priority. And then again, I hope that the new Department of Justice is very aggressive in pursuing the people who instigated this.
So it doesn't seem like there's going to be any real consequence until at least the 20th of January or the 21st of January. Meanwhile, it's from reports are saying that they're planning to come back on Inauguration Day and wreak havoc again. What do you have any idea what is being planned to deal with that? Or is Trump just saying, oh, we'll just leave the guard out of it this time?
I mean, I don't have any reporting on this. Let me just say that my sense of things as an observer is that I can't imagine that they'll leave themselves exposed. The security apparatus would leave themselves exposed to another disastrous event unfolding in the Capitol. So I think that there's going to be insane security for. It's
not like Trump calls for the security for the inauguration, right? There's just
no.
So it's already going to be there regardless of Trump's, desires for insurrection.
The White House's DOD employees. Remember, Trump gutted the leadership of the Pentagon and installed loyalists in there very late. I don't remember the exact dates of this, but it was like in November or October, something like that. And there appears to have been a concerted effort to keep National Guardsmen in their barracks from deploying. And we need to get to the bottom of what motivated that, how that worked out. Beyond, it is not Trump who will decide the security arrangements for the inauguration. DC Mayor Muriel
Bowser.
Thank you. Sent a letter to DHS asking them to make it a national security special event, not just from I think it was supposed to be from the 19th to the 21st. She said, let's extend that. Let's start that now, because there's, chatter on social media about an attack on the Capitol on the 17th. There's chatter about an attack on the Capitol on the 19th.
He told everybody to come back later.
Listen, I worry about... I said this on Twitter. Al-Qaeda, after the USS Cole, they didn't go and attack another ship in port for repairs in the Middle East, right? They shifted their tactics. I don't expect them to go back to DC, the same characters in the midst of a huge security crackdown, and try this again. I worry, and what I hope is being done, and I feel like it probably is, what I worry about is them using the fact that all of the security resources will be on the Capitol to attack elsewhere.
Other targets.
Right? So I worry about state houses and Gretchen Whitmer's security and all of that. That's the type of thing. Because look, again, I think that the Capitol, after this narrowly averted disaster, right? Again, this could have been so much worse. Will be locked down very securely, and there's going to be a lot of soft targets elsewhere. So this is what I worry about.
Do you believe that Trump will be held accountable for his actions either before his term ends or afterwards? Are there signs pointing to this?
There are certainly signs pointing to this, and
there's a lot of talk, but I want real signs.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to pundit this because we've never been in a situation that's analogous. So I don't know, but it certainly looks like the House is moving forward with articles of impeachment or article of impeachment. There's two different efforts going on, one of which would just charge him with inciting the riots, but it doesn't look like they're going to be able to bring the Senate back to do a trial before he's out of office. But look,
they can't work on Zoom like everybody else. I'm sorry, we're on Zoom. We're doing the news on Zoom. They could do
the way the Senate rules work is that they need unanimous consent to do it, and what that means is that any of the people who were complicit in this can stop that process from happening again before the 19th. So they come back. They're scheduled to come back in session on the 19th, and then they must take up articles of impeachment. But I think this is probably going to happen after Trump is gone. And I want to just point out the importance of that, of doing that is, first of all, just obviously send a message to future wannabe dictators that's not going to work, that will end up with your conviction. It sends an important message to the rest of the world that we don't take this lightly, and we're not going to accept this kind of broad assault on our electoral system. And it will not automatically has to be a separate vote. It will strip him of eligibility of running again and holding federal office again. It also means that he won't have a pension. He won't get $1 million a year in travel support from the taxpayers, right? Like, yeah, we have to go through with it.
And it doesn't have to be done before the 20th, or it does.
It can't be done before the 20th.
Right.
It can't be done before the 20th. It has to be done after he's out of office. And look, there's a school of thought that says,
oh, I'm sorry. Okay, go ahead. I'm sorry. I must have.
Yeah.
I got lost in there for a second. Okay, go ahead, Josh.
Yeah. No, there's a school of thought that says, let Joe Biden have his first 100 days and get action underway and delay and, don't worry about a Senate trial. I want to push back on that line of thinking. First of all, these things aren't mutually exclusive. You can just try him in a committee. You can make a special committee to manage the trial, have it go on concurrently. It will certainly it'll suck up some of the, energy, but in the room, but you can keep going. You can provide,
because so many people are suffering.
You can provide COVID relief. You can craft a bill while you're doing that.
Because so many people are suffering financially. They're suffering from COVID. We've got an out of control pandemic.
We've got multiple interlocking disasters going on.
So people are saying that one should be pushed aside.
Yes, and I'm sympathetic to that argument. Like I do, if I believe that holding a trial immediately would preclude crafting a relief bill, working on whatever agenda they could get by Joe Manchin.
Each of them could be doing something. Each of the 400 people up there. Yes.
I would be more sympathetic to that argument.
We can walk, chew gum, and send a president to jail,
and uphold our democracy. And then I hope that this makes it more likely that I've never thought that Trump would face any sort of legal consequences for crimes he's committed in office. So that's obstruction of justice and whatever else. But it has long been my hope that the incentives are different for attorneys general in blue states to pursue him for financial crimes that we've basically known he's been committing for 30, 40 years, right? And he's enjoyed impunity for them because nobody's really gone after him in the past. And I would hope that just as we're seeing, golf courses reject him and Lehigh University withdraw his degree and Twitter suspend his account, this would encourage attorneys general to, pursue the evidence, any evidence, and I believe there's quite a bit of it, of illegality in Trump's businesses and bring these people to justice. They need to see the inside of a courtroom, as far as I'm concerned.
Josh Holland, you said that there has not been, we don't have any analogous situations, but Arnold Schwarzenegger came out with a video address talking about the analogous situation of World War II.
Yes.
What did you make of the video?
I mean, I think that it's very, I didn't see the video. I know what the video is. I read about the video and I didn't actually see it, but I got the gist of it.
The actual video was 7 minutes. It's worth a look, He brought
I'm sure what I read was longer than the actual video. And I have my quirks, so I guess that's one of them. For me, the important lesson is something that all of the experts in authoritarianism are also saying. All the historians agree with this. The response to a failed coup attempt has a lot to do with what the next one, whether the next one succeeds. So the basic lesson of the World War II analogy is that there was the beer hall putsch in 1923. It was a crackpot coup attempt. It had, I don't know if it had a, equal chance of succeeding as this one. But it was a disaster for Hitler. He ended up imprisoned. And we know how the next one worked out. And that's the thing that we have to, that's the lesson that history has to offer us, is we take this seriously and we address it, or the next time we can expect things to be a lot worse and we may not get through it. That's the lesson.
Josh Holland, thank you so very much. I really appreciate you coming on our program and doing this debrief. It's been quite a stressful time for those of us who have been watching.
It really has been stressful, huh? I'm stressed out. No. Thanks for having me, Julianna. I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
No, we appreciate you. If you're watching, don't forget to follow Josh on Twitter. I've had his Twitter up this whole Joshua Hall on Twitter for his live reactions instead of just waiting for him to come here, his live reactions. He also has a podcast. He's a host of We've Got Issues that comes out pretty much every week. Aptly titled, I might add.
We got issues, big ones. Yeah.
If you're watching us, thanks, Josh, for coming. I appreciate it. If you're watching us on YouTube, again, what do I got to do every time? I got to ask you to subscribe, like, turn on the ringer bell thing, whatever that is. And, we're going to bring you this kind of talk as soon as possible. We know there are few outlets for true progressive talk, for non-corporate progressive talk. And this is one of them. So if you like that kind of thing, please subscribe. I'm Julianna Forlano. You could also find me on Twitter. Thanks for watching. Coming up later this week, Lori Wallach, Global Trade Watch, is coming on. I know it's hard to talk about anything else when, the dismantling of democracy, insurrection, and our very own Kristallnacht knock is happening here in the United States. But we do have to keep our eyes on everything else that's happening.